Hi, and welcome to the Dinner Agenda. This is Bo.
And this is CeeLo.
Well, CeeLo, we have a very interesting episode today.
Oh, yeah, we do.
And I know we normally do banter between us two,
Yes.
but we have the infamous Mel
Yes.
joining our podcast episode today. So she's going to be part of our opening banter. Hello, Mel. Welcome to the Mel's Comedy Hour.
Oh, yeah. Hi, ladies. I got a lot to say.
Oh
Picked
my
on
God,
me
Mel.
all these weeks and months.
I've changed my mind. This is a bad idea.
No,
Let's
it's too
not
late
do it.
now. I'm here. Forget it. It's over. All the
I
secrets
think
shall come out.
this is awesome. You've been definitely a highlight of a lot of our laughter, so it's good to have
I
you
get
on.
the text messages about them also.
From people who are
From
listening.
people who listen. They're like, oh my God, you did that? Did you buy a poker table? Really? I'm like, seriously? How do you know this? I haven't talked to you in like weeks. And they're like, I was listening to the podcast. I'm like, I need to start listening to the podcast. So I did. And I have a lot to say about your opening remarks.
Well, let me start off this by just sharing some information with CeeLo. So, CeeLo, you were on business last week. You were away on business.
Yes.
And so Dave and I went to your son's lacrosse game.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, really? You have to bring this up.
I'm bringing it up. I'm bringing it up. So,
I just want to say before you start,
yeah,
I don't sit next to her during lacrosse games.
I see why. I understand why now. Okay, so we go to the lacrosse game to watch your son play.
Yet
Okay,
again, just for the record.
what'd you say? What'd you say, Mom?
She said she's being painted poorly.
No. When I'm done talking, then you tell me if I've been untrue in anything I've said.
I will tell you. Go on.
Okay, so Dave and I are watching your son play lacrosse. Anyways, your wife is helping out because I think the assistant coach or whoever it was not there that day.
Yeah.
So she was actually helping out. So she was
I'm the trainer on the team. I'm the backup trainer. Okay. So that's why I was on the bench that day. Thank you. Just for clarification.
Is the backup trainer,
I am.
everybody. Just in case you just didn't understand, she's the backup trainer. Okay. So she was the backup trainer and she was in the area where the kids were sitting, the players were sitting. So I was sitting next to your sister.
Yeah.
And I said to your sister, I said, you know, I don't think, or actually I think we used to play lacrosse at high school. And I think that friend of ours, the mutual one that we had, CeeLo, her first name started with a K,
Yeah.
last name with a T.
Yeah.
Okay. So she used to be on this team. And so your sister says to me, we never played lacrosse at our high school. And I said, no, we did. She was on the team. I know you're shaking your head. No. And your sister says, that was field hockey. And I'm like, what's the fucking difference?
And this is why you are invited as an auntie only to ever come to these games.
Okay. But then the highlight of the whole flippin' evening, we're all being supportive of the kids. Yay. Even though sometimes they're sucking and sometimes they're not sucking. And we're just kind of like, yay, this is really great. Guess who gets what is it called, Mel? A foul, a suspension, what's it called? No, what's it? Just give me the word. What's the word called?
It's called a technical penalty. Bench minor.
Penalty.
Okay. A bench minor.
Okay, whatever. So your wife gets this penalty. Your wife. And you want to know why, CeeLo? You want to know why she gets the penalty?
You know, I'm really curious to hear this, but I already know. You don't even need to finish the story. And I already know. And I don't believe this is the first time either.
Yes.
That's bullshit.
Oh, no, it's the second.
Okay, so our dinner guests need to know. So basically, as the kids are doing their game, some kid gets mouthy with Mel. And Mel turns around to yeah, suck it.
No. Okay.
You did. You told
incorrect.
the kid,
this is
the
incorrect.
little kid, just suck it.
This is okay. No.
Yes,
Stop and let me explain myself. He hit one of our boys into the board and hurt him. And our player dropped his lacrosse stick because he got hit so hard. the kid took his lacrosse stick from the opposing team and flung our player's lacrosse stick away from him. And I was like, come on, ref, unsportsmanlike conduct. And the kid turned around in the sauciest of voices and said, it's lacrosse. And I was like, whatever, suck it. But I didn't say it to the kid. I just said it in general. And then the referee was on me like white on rice because
Yep.
I said
Yep.
that. But look at my wife is staring at me. But
Mm-hmm.
our coaches were a little bit chirping the referees all the games. So I think I was the last straw that broke the camel's back, so to say. So yeah.
You know how
It
we
was me
talk
that
to
got
our
it.
son sometimes about taking accountability and not blaming others for their poor decisions and bad behavior?
Yeah. You want to talk about poor decisions?
I think we just did. I think we just covered that actually.
So yeah, thanks for bringing that up, Bo.
You're very welcome, my
You're never
darling.
welcome
You're
over
very
for
welcome.
dinner again.
No, those are fighting words. You do not
Yeah.
deny me dinner. You're cooking.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah.
That's
You heard it
can't
here,
do that.
folks. You heard it here, folks.
I am just going to show up.
Can I just like defend
No.
myself about
No.
this whole auction nonsense? You two have created this scenario of craziness that there is package upon package, week over week that
Is
comes
that
to
not
our
true?
house. No, it's not true. It's not true. I buy
Somehow I
one
believe CeeLo.
poker tabletop. I make a mistake and buy 2 things of poker chips, and I will never live it down. All the other
How
stuff
many-
is used. It's cooking stuff. I do all the cooking. I'm Chef Mel.
Yeah, you're Chef Mal.
Yeah.
And I said
You are
that.
Chef
Like
Mal.
I kind of don't
You
have
said
a
it
say
once.
on the cooking stuff. I said that already.
I
but
think it's just spousal stuff. Nonsense.
I'm not sure we need 18 frying pans. though.
Well, when you cook the way I do, there's a frying pan for it's like a proper shoe. You don't wear a running shoe with a ball gown, right? Like you wear a nice heel. Well, maybe you
Do
don't,
you?
but I would.
Do you
Yeah.
have
I do
I'm
have
like,
heels.
girl, no,
But
I
it's
don't.
like, can we just talk about spouses picking on each other for a moment just before we get into all of this? Because I don't know, Bo, with the renovations going on at your place, like,
Yeah.
do you ask your husband, hey, honey, I have 2 options here. What do you think? Option A or option B?
Yeah, totally.
And he turns around and he says, oh, I really like option B. And you're like, no, I like option A because of these reasons. Well, okay, then go with option B or go with option A. And then you're like, but don't you want to say in this? I'm like, well, you asked and I didn't have a say. So why are you asking? Like, this is a constant in our house.
But it's
constant.
like that here
Everything.
too.
Everything.
It's like
No,
yeah,
no.
it's like that here too.
Mm.
No, it is because you know what? Honestly, Mel, there are things. So there are things that I will ask Dave's opinion on, especially with the renovations, right? Because I want us to both kind of have a say. But sometimes when we are choosing between the two, and I say to him, do you want option A or option B? Inside my mind, I already know I want option A, and we're going with option A, regardless of whether or not he says option B, because let's be real, I do most of the decorating inside the house and most of the decision making anyways. So,
So don't do the false sense of you actually give a shit. Just be like,
but I do give a shit
no,
because
no.
I'll tell you.
No.
No, because if he's,
No.
well, honestly, Mel, because if he said, oh my God, if you go with option A, I'm going to vomit every day of my life. I hate it so much. I would, no, or if he was truly, really adamant about it, I would not
Mhm.
go with option
Yeah,
A.
I'd like to see that.
But Mel,
I'm just saying. So to all the listeners, all the spouses
They're
out
called
there,
our dinner guests.
dinner guests, my apologies to our dinner guests, to all our dinner guests that are listening to this, word of advice, it does not feel good when you're asked for your opinion and then it's not taken into any consideration because it's already been predetermined.
I think though that's where you're wrong. I wouldn't ask for your opinion if I didn't want it.
You try to make it inclusive. It's
I'm-
like not real. It's like these big corporate companies that try to be inclusive
I
for
wa-
pride, and they're
yeah.
really not. They're
and boys and girls, this is what therapy is all about.
Thank you for
You're
tuning
watching
in
it live.
to our episode of Couples Therapy this week. I just
So
didn't
tell me-
necessarily agree with your opinion. That's all.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Tell me how you really feel, Mel. Tell me how you really
I
feel
think
about
I
it.
just did.
I'm gonna go make her choose between fucking frying pans in a minute.
Yeah.
That's how it's gonna go.
You know,
She's gonna have to choose between wives in a minute. I'm telling you.
Oh, have you listened to the episode on polyamory?
Yeah,
Kinda-
don't threaten CeeLo. She knows more information now.
yeah, I have lots of information now.
The thing is, Mel, you are very competitive, which, is everybody knows that. And you do like gambling. Everybody knows that. I mean, I do remember a time when you and I went to the casino. Do you remember that? Do you
Dangerous.
remember that?
I do.
Best.
Okay. And do you remember before we left the house, you said to me, listen, Bo, I'm going to give you my debit card. I don't want you giving me my debit card. I've got the money that I need for tonight. I don't want you, under no circumstances will you give me this debit card. Even if I tell you I'm going to murder you, do not give me this debit card. Do you remember that?
I do not
You remember that?
recall. I do not recall
Yeah.
this event. I plead the fifth.
We get to the casino and she's going and she's going and she's going and she goes through her money and then she needs more money. And she's like, Bo, I need my debit card. I'm like, no. Bo, I need my debit. No. And you just would not stop. You wouldn't stop. I was threatening to call CeeLo. I was like, and you're like, I don't care. Give me my fucking debit card. I'm ready to just pound me to the ground. I gave you your debit card.
I was going
Do
to
you remember that?
blame you. I think you were afraid for your life a little bit maybe
Yeah.
at that moment. But
She's
it
like,
was
At that moment, yeah.
it was like I didn't take enough with me, Cash. I didn't think about the longevity.
I know how much you took with you and you had enough.
I did not have enough. This is when it was good where I had my own businesses because those were
Yes,
all
you were
separate
rolling.
funds. So I
Yeah,
could
and you were
tackle into
rolling in the
those
dough
every
for
once
sure.
in a while and
Yeah.
not have to
Yeah.
explain myself to my wife and to my supposedly other wife now.
But the point is that I think for the most part, CeeLo is definitely being honest and truthful about your online auctioning. I think
Well-
that you get really excited. I get it, but
It does.
the
The whole thing
makes,
it combines a little bit of gambling, a little bit of competitiveness, and
Yeah.
online shopping. Which
Okay. I will
Those-
never admit this ever again.
okay.
but
There was someone that was outbidding me on something I wanted, and I didn't care if it was going to cost me 10 times more than retail. I just didn't want them to have it.
What item was that?
I didn't end up with it. Some
Okay.
other sucker ended up buying it, but
Okay.
I ran that price up purposefully just because I was
Did you?
refusing to let them have it.
Because
that was
if-
my competitive nature.
If you had said that was the fucking snoring things that I ended up giving
No.
my brother, I would be mad. I would be really mad right now.
No. It was
actually, CeeLo, it's a second green felt tabletop poker thing. It's just a surprise, just waiting to give it to you for your
I
birthday.
can't remember what it was, but yeah, that person just
Mhm.
pissed me off. It was like every time I put a bid on it, they just upped it. So then I started upping the bid by $20 just to blow them out of the
Mhm.
water.
So you realize now that you're just telling our dinner guests that CeeLo has been very truthful with who you are.
So there's always an element of truth to every story. There's 3
Uh-huh.
sides, right? There's
Yeah.
my side, which is almost always right. And then there's CeeLo's side.
Which is
Mm.
always right.
I think Bo and CeeLo's side is probably right, and we're gonna go with Mel's side, probably
Partially
not.
right.
I'm not.
Although
partial.
that little admission that you just did, which is basically recorded now. You're like, I'll never admit to saying this. I'm like, it doesn't matter now. I've got it
I
recorded.
know. I feel
It's
like I'm
the
being
truth.
abused on this show. I don't
Oh,
I don't know
honey,
if I
that's
ever
it.
wanna
Just
return.
wait. Just wait. It's just hasn't even started yet, sweetheart.
Yeah.
It's
I
a
was gonna
coming.
say, yeah. No, it's awesome. You've given me some good laughs over that stuff for sure.
Oh, this is
Me
why
too.
we've been together for so many
Yeah,
years. How
that's
many
true.
years are we coming on? 24 years. We're in our 24th year.
Are we
That's
really?
Yeah,
crazy.
you stole me
That's
out of
flipping
grade
crazy.
school.
Oh my god.
So
Seriously.
this would probably be a great time to then introduce what this episode is about because in honor of and support of Pride Month, we've done some stories each week that have to deal with either CeeLo's coming out story or some types of alternative lifestyles or raising a trans kid and like all these things that kind of go part and parcel with celebrating everybody's individual uniqueness and acceptance, right? But one of the things that I was saying to CeeLo, Mel, is that when you hear CeeLo talk about her coming out story and the support that she had, Really, I think that's more of an anomaly, like that's not something that is mostly common. I'm just making the assumption that it's not. I think CeeLo had a really, really, really positive support network already established when she decided to come out. So there was a lot more love and acceptance. But I think really most people who do come out, especially when they're younger, may not have had the same experiences. And I think that that's your case, right, Mel? Like it was not exactly the same as CeeLo's, right? It wasn't as positive.
No, it definitely
Okay.
wasn't as positive. I had support, don't get me wrong. I
Hmm.
had support from key individuals in my life.
Hmm.
But it was very difficult.
Hmm.
Culture, background, expectations, and all of those were sort of shattered
Yeah.
for
Yeah.
those in my immediate family. So
Yeah.
it was a
Okay.
challenging time. It's funny.
For sure.
You look at, and we can go through the story, but you look at where we are today, and no one would have bet money that we would have been here.
Yeah, it's
So
true.
yeah,
It's true.
Yeah.
We've come a
we've come a
long
long
way,
way. We've come
baby.
all
You,
the
you,
royal we,
The
my
royal
entire
we.
family.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
that's true. That's true.
Well, I think that's part of why we do this. It's the getting information out there for people to listen to digest, to try to understand, to maybe sometimes change the way that they're thinking about certain things so that they can get to that end of the road a little bit faster. But your experience that you're going to talk about, Mel, is just that. It's a learning experience, right? So I'm glad that you've gotten to the place that you guys are now. So we'll talk about that. But let's go back to when you, because this is your coming out story. So let's talk about when you first understood or realized that you might like girls. When did this happen? And how did this happen for you?
So I think that was like, hindsight is always like the perfect vision of your past life because you can go back, you can analyze it and think about it. But I was very protective of my female friends to the point
Mhm.
where, if their boyfriends mistreated them, I would get really upset about it. I just wanted to take care of them and protect them. Didn't think any much of it. Um, I think as I got a bit older, there was a little bit more to it, and then the curiosity came about because you didn't really talk about being gay, or
Mhm.
it wasn't it
Wasn't on
wasn't
TV.
it
Wasn't
wasn't
on.
yeah, it wasn't
Nothing. Yeah.
anywhere, and it was kind of like, it was a dirty secret you had to kind of carry and hide. And so I got into these like lesbian chat rooms, when we still had dial
Oh,
up
you had
internet.
the internet.
Yeah, I had the internet, the dial
Ah.
up internet. And
Well, how old were you? How old were you?
at this point, I think I was probably about an 18, 19.
Like
Okay,
post high
so
school.
Post high school, yeah, post high school.
okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Always had
So
boyfriends. Always had boyfriends up until then, right?
mhm. Mhm.
Started to get a bit more curious. Started to have a little bit of a romance with someone of the same gender. Um,
Did you meet this person on this online
no,
thing
this
or
was actually a friend of my boyfriend at the time. Yeah.
Yeah, girl, that's what I'm talking about.
Yeah. Anyways, we won't talk about that too much. So that was kind of like what got me, again, being
Uh-huh.
protective of my friends.
Yeah.
But that first like experience with her,
That stirred it up.
that's when you were like, oh,
Yeah.
something's different.
Yeah,
Something's
something
different.
feels very different inside of me.
So prior to that though, Mel, you didn't have any, like, CeeLo talked about having crushes on people and not realizing that that's what that was, but you didn't have any of that
I had a
or
crush on my gym teacher.
Who doesn't?
female?
I
What
know.
lesbian doesn't have a crush on
I
their
think
gym
that's
teacher?
pretty standard. That's like your first badge
Yeah.
before you even
Yeah,
know.
you get the badge.
Yeah.
That's true. That's true.
But
Oh,
no,
Lord.
not really. But I wasn't. I wasn't an overly sexually curious individual. I
Mhm.
was really sporty, and like that was it. Like my competitive nature, playing sports, the whole bit. So there was never any real inclination until that moment with this
Mhm.
particular woman where I was
Mhm.
like, "Oh,
Hello.
wait a minute. this
Yeah.
this feels nice." Like just the
Mhm.
butterflies and all of that. Never had that previously.
Was
So,
it after that then you started to
Yes.
explore the chat rooms and stuff?
yeah, yeah. And then I went,
Hmm.
I went and met two women at a bar in the Village on Church Street, and called my brother, and I'm like, yo, you need to be at this place just in case they're crazy. I don't know what I'm getting into. They seem super nice. I said, but, and my brother's like, you met them in a chat room. Like, you're nuts. And I'm like, but like, how else am I going to meet people? I'm not going to go down to the Village on my own.
Mm-hmm.
So he
Yeah.
came with a friend and sat, in the corner of this bar while I was having a conversation with these two women that I had met. And then I hit it off with one of them, and then ended up staying friends with the other one, and still stay in contact with to this day.
Oh, amazing.
Yeah. And
Oh, that's nice.
yeah, anyways, we hit it off.
Mhm.
We started chatting, and that's when I realized this was who I was.
Not just
Yeah.
a little
Yeah.
passing thing.
Yeah, it wasn't like a little, Katy Perry, I kissed a girl and I liked it. It was,
Mhm,
I think
mhm.
this might be who I am. So yeah, yeah. So I think that was,
Okay.
I would say probably 2021. Yeah, somewhere there.
Okay. And I know that you are of European-ish descent, right?
Yeah.
So we kind of share some of that cultural element to our upbringing.
Uh-huh.
When you first said to yourself, "Okay, I think I'm a lesbian," did you freak out? Were you like, "Holy shit, what am I going to do?" Like, what was going through your mind?
I didn't do that right away. I think I was back and forth 2 years between having boyfriends and privately having girlfriends
Oh yeah,
for a couple of
okay,
years.
okay.
Yeah. And then when I think when I finally came to the conclusion that this is who I might be,
Hmm.
because the fear of being honest with yourself, right? Because of all of
Yeah.
the negativity of society that comes with it. So then I found an apartment and I moved out, and that didn't go over well because, you move out to your husband's house when you get married.
Yes.
Like that's the
Yes.
way it goes. You don't move out just because,
That's right.
So I moved out, and my dad didn't think much of it. He was like, whatever. My mom was very upset over this and the whole bit. Dad thought I would be back in a couple of months because I'd find it too hard, but I am his daughter and I am competitive, so I work 2 jobs to be able to keep that apartment and keep everything afloat. So yeah, and then I started to like live my life
Yeah.
with exploring more of who I am. It was like finding myself all over again.
Mhm. Like
Mhm.
even just becoming an adult and becoming self-sufficient and getting that confidence, and that all of those things all tied up into it too, right?
Yeah, and just being responsible, that it was, and I don't want to call it like, what's the word I'm looking for? It was just like, it was having my own space, my own private space and life that didn't have my parents part of it.
Mhm.
And I think my mom at that point, there was a few things like she found some lesbian books when she was looking for my racquetball racket under my bed. And,
I can
Um,
totally picture your mom pulling this book out, looking at it, and I can like see her face.
she
like,
screamed at me. She's like, "What are you doing with these? Why are these in your room?" And I'm like, "I'm ghostwriting and I'm investigating this because I'm trying to make some extra money." I was so quick with the lies.
It's
It
not
was-
like, oh my God, they're
God.
so and so's.
No, I'm like, no, I'm researching because I'm ghostwriting. I was like, and she kind of,
And she believed you?
Oh.
And she believed you?
you've seen my poker face, Bo. So, like, yeah.
Yeah,
So
that's
it
true,
was
that's
like,
true.
and I had to own that shit too, because I
Yeah.
had to be like, this is the truth, because I could not be found out, because
It's like,
I knew.
okay, now mom's coming home. You're like, okay, get out the paper and pen. I'm going to pretend I'm writing something.
Yeah. And like before, it wasn't
See
like,
spot run.
you didn't have the quick clicks too on your keyboard to be able to shut down all the windows. So she'd like come into my room and I'd be chatting with
Yeah.
this woman, and I'm like, click, click, click. And then she's like, "What are you doing?" I'm like, "Nothing." She goes, "What was on your screen?" I'm like, "I was just looking at things."
I was
So,
shopping.
So when I moved
Yeah.
out, I had my own space and my own freedom to come and go
Explore.
as me.
Yeah.
Well, not even explore, but as me, as my
Mhm.
person, and finding out who I am and really trying to understand my life, because
Mhm.
everything was overcast with my culture and my family and expectations. So, having that capability to, find myself.
Yeah.
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 Figure it out.
Yeah. So who was the first person that you confided in about this?
I have a cousin.
Mhm.
She kept my secret for a while, and then I
Mhm.
was outed by a news network when CeeLo and I
Oh.
went to the gay wedding show at the convention center, and I ended up on the 6 o'clock and 11 o'clock news.
Oh my gosh, I remember.
Remember that?
You know what? I
I
remember
remember that
partially.
now.
Yeah, but I had forgotten this. You need to share this story. Remind me what
Oh
happened.
my Jesus.
Yeah, total. Oh my Jesus! I was
But we
calling
were-
for him all night.
We
Yeah,
were wedding planning.
we were.
So you were out
But-
to your parents, but not to your broader family.
I was no, my one aunt. So okay, let me actually rewind this a bit. I worked
Okay.
with an aunt. We worked for the same company in different areas of this organization, and we went for lunch one day, and we're riding up the escalator, and she grabs my arm, and she's like, "I'll always love you," and I'm like, "Pardon?" And she's like, "Oh, this is gonna make me teary eyed."
Oh. Oh, Mel, it's okay. It's okay. You can
There's
cry.
no crying on podcasts. Come on.
Let her cry. She can cry. It's
Aw.
okay, Mel. You know,
She was.
Yeah.
This is my mom's sister, right? So
yeah.
Close.
Yeah. So she was like, "I'll always love you," and I'm like, "What are you talking about? Still trying to hide it and fight it?" She goes, "Mel, I
Mhm.
know." I'm like, "Really?" She goes, "Yeah." She goes, "I've known for a while." She goes, "And I don't care." She goes, "I will love you." And this woman, I will always have a special place in my heart for her because now here I am crying on the internet. There goes my tough butchy look.
What'd you yell at that
Yeah.
kid? Suck it.
Suck
Suck
it.
You're a bloody softy inside. We all know that. Okay.
But yeah,
Yeah.
so she, it was just the support right in those few words.
Yeah.
It was super, super incredible. And
Yeah.
yeah, and it made it a bit easier. And then I had a cousin that knew, that kind of kept my secret for a while. And yeah, I didn't have a lot of people that knew. Like my brother didn't know. Like I kept
But then
it hush-hush.
how did you get outed though? How did
Oh,
that
yeah. So we bought our house. Our house
Mhm.
was in air quotes, an investment. My
Just
family,
two friends
We're just
making
two
an
friends.
investment.
Yeah. Oh, and there's so many stories we could talk about with this house, but we're not going to go down
We're
that
not.
road.
That's a whole other road.
That's a extra explicit version. But yeah, so the house was an investment, and when I had met CeeLo, she had the cute little dyke spike, and when
Love that hair.
yeah, you were cute, and then
Were.
you still are.
Thank
Sorry, yeah.
Go on.
And then introducing her to my
Yeah.
family, and we went to go visit relatives in the US that immediately tagged and labeled, and
Mhm.
why are you hanging out with this person, and blah blah blah. But my immediate family, she's awesome, so it was like
Mhm.
easy to win over hearts and stuff. But there was my mom, back to those books she found in my room, and here's my
Starting to put
friend
the puzzle pieces
who
together.
I bought a house with, who has the dyke
Mhm.
spike hair, and all of that kind of stuff. So I think it was just, then it was denial from a few people, and I was like, I'm not ready to openly say that I'm gay,
Mhm.
queer. So anyways, time goes by, fast forward a little bit more.
Okay, but wait, like in that time, like part of that story is tough because we were together
Yeah,
in everything.
yeah,
We were invested. We
Yeah.
we bought
Yeah.
the house together.
yeah.
And you not being out impacted me and impacted our relationship a little bit.
Oh, big time. Yeah.
Right? Like that was tough. That was tough to go through. And I
Yeah.
mean, I wanted to be obviously supportive and give you time and space to figure it out. I knew how, especially after meeting your fam, they're so awesome, but I knew how tough it was going to be, but it was hard those first couple of years for
Yeah.
sure.
And then, right. You're right. Yeah. And then the whole gay wedding thing, convention center, I'm on 6 o'clock and 11 o'clock news. Now I'm calling my family, my mom. I'm like, hey, where are you at? And she's like, why does it matter? I'm like, you been home yet? You watch the news at all? So there was that kind of stuff. And then, and then when I finally came out, I finally came out. Do you remember how that all went down? My mom called the house.
Your mom?
Well, hold on 1 sec. I just want to bring you back. So the 6 o'clock news, did anybody from your family see
Yeah,
that?
a whole shit ton of people. At that point, I was
Okay.
outed without confirming I was gay.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Did anybody call you and say,
Oh, I had some.
oh my God.
calls.
But I feel like that came after you had talked to your parents.
It could have been.
Because-
I'm old now. My memory sucks. So
Because
Right?
we bought the
Right.
house in 2001
one.
and we got married in 2005. And so we would have been at like a wedding show in 2004 at the earliest. And for sure you had already talked to your parents by then. But I don't think it was
No.
more broad.
Oh yeah, maybe.
You know what I
maybe,
mean?
Maybe. Yeah. Oh, I had this one aunt that found me at an outlet store, and she's trying to check my hand for a ring after we got married, and I was like, "You nosy Nelly." I'm like, "Beat it."
You know
But-
what, guys? I remember, and I don't know why, and again, I'm old too, so I'm probably going to get it wrong, but I seem to remember conversation that when you two got engaged, CeeLo, I think you were saying to Mel at that time, okay, you're going to have to sit down and talk to your parents. They're going to need to know, and they're going to need to know that this is serious and we're getting married.
That we're getting married.
yeah,
Yeah.
for the wedding.
Yeah.
At that time, CeeLo was like super supportive, and you know, I wouldn't say gave me an ultimatum, but gave me the push that I needed to own this and kind of and come out to my family like officially, and
Yeah.
I did.
But remember, your mom had gone to see a psychic?
Yeah, well, yeah, that's the story I was
Yeah.
going to tell. So I was like, okay, I'm going to tell her. I'm going to tell them the whole bit, right? Like they need to know. Then my mom calls.
Oh God.
I don't answer the phone. I'm like, CeeLo, just answer it. Like this is when you still had call display on your home phone, right?
Yes.
Just
Yeah.
answer it. And she's like, I don't want to answer it. I'm like, just answer it. Tell her I'm not home. Tell her I'm at a work thing. I don't want to do this now. I'm going to hand it over to you because then she started drilling you with
I'm
questions.
too old for so I remember answering the phone and I was chatting with your mom and your mom said to me that she had been to a psychic and that the psychic told her that Mel had something to tell.
Big news.
Big news,
To share.
something big to share. And I'm like, "Oh, really? That's cool." She's not home right now.
I'm just a
And she's like,
roommate.
yeah, exactly. I'm just a roommate. I'm just a house investor. And so I was kind of like trying to put her off a little bit. And I'm like, I can get her to call you when she's back. And she was like really pressing me. And I'm like, I'm not talking to you about it right now. And I'll get Mel to call you. And then I hung up. And then I said to Mel right away, I'm like, you need to call your mother.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah,
Yeah,
I remember that.
yeah.
And I'm like, oh man, what is this? So I call back. I'm like, half an hour later, hey ma, what's going on? Blah blah blah. And she's like, where were you? I'm like, I was out with work people. She goes, you two are never separated from one another. She's like, you were at a work thing? I'm like, yeah, I was at a work thing. I'm like, what's up? She's like, well, I saw this psychic today, and the psychic told me you have big news to tell me and that I need to listen. I said, oh, that's really interesting. I'm like, what'd they say about my brother? What'd they say about so-and-so? And she kept bringing it back to my big news. And I was like, oh man, I got, this is my moment. Like, I got to do this now.
Mhm.
So I'm like, okay, well, I said, I don't know how crazy of a news it is. I said, but I'm pregnant. And the
What?
phone goes quiet. And I'm like,
You're such a shit. You are such a motherfucking shit. I can so see you do. That's what you said.
Yeah.
Okay.
And I'm like, I'm just kidding. I'm gay. And she's
Okay.
like, well, which is it? Are you pregnant or are you gay? I'm like, I'm gay. And she's like, okay. I'm like, okay. She's like, yeah, okay. She's like, I love you. I'm like,
Wow.
okay. I'm like the relief. And I remember CeeLo sitting on the other side of the sofa and her looking at me like in surprise, like she was surprised. And I felt so good, like relief, like this weight had been lifted off of me with really being able to tell my mom that I was gay. And hung up the phone.
This does not sound like a bad.
Oh no.
coming out
Oh,
soon.
it gets better. Yeah.
Okay.
Oh yeah, hold tight, dinner guests.
Right. Dinner guests.
So-
That's funny.
Maybe it just needed a some time for it to sink in.
Oh yeah, it definitely needed time to marinate in her mind, because the next phone call I had, which was a couple days later, was not so nice, not so loving and caring. And no disrespect, Mom, if you're listening to this, but we both know the truth behind that conversation. I'm not going to repeat it here, but it was
Yeah.
it
It was
was
tough.
it was like the cycles of mourning, really, is what
Yes.
my family was going through, right? Like the shock,
Yeah.
the disbelief.
Yeah, like nothing's happening. You're still here. I
Yeah.
love you. It's okay. But then it's almost like now with kids, you see it, right?
Yeah.
Because you have a certain expectation, and then all of a sudden, you know, it's not fitting the same picture that you thought it was gonna be,
Yeah.
or it's a little bit different from how you had it planned it out in your mind. And so this news gets interjected, and all of a sudden everything that you had in this
Shattered.
perfect little bubble for your kid has changed. And I think, our parents, Jen, I mean, my parents were older than your parents, but it was like you're choosing this life of, pain and suffering and strife and all these things that you're going to have to go through. And as a parent, I mean, I get it. There's certain things you get now that your parents did or said that you're like, okay.
Well, you saying that, the choosing the life, like those were words that were used.
Yeah.
Why would you choose this life? And
Yeah.
I'm like, why would I choose a life to want to live in fear that I could be beaten? I could have rocks thrown through my
Could
windows.
be fired
I
from
could
my
be
job.
fired
Yeah.
from my
Yeah.
job. I could
Yeah.
be ostracized
It's like
from my family and my, like, why in good faith would I choose this life if it wasn't who my true self was? So we had that conversation, and then, it took time. Like I said, it was the grieving process, right? And then that level of anger, the anger of losing all the hopes and dreams that were put upon me. That was a fun cycle.
Well, I think also, Mel, because your family is Greek, mine is Italian, similar in terms of traditions, in terms of expectations for the family, and especially for daughters, etc. And there was that assumption there that you would grow up, you would get married, and you would have children, and it would be with a man,
Yeah.
right?
I just left out the
And
man part. I did everything else for them.
you did, but culturally,
Yeah, I know.
this was not something that they were familiar with, that was accepted. So not only are they mourning, what Sila was talking about, which is that idea and plan, right, that they had for their child, and expectation that they had for their child, but then there's this cultural element that's coming in, and probably even a religious element at that point too.
100%.
That kind of screams, this is all really just wrong. And, they have trouble understanding it because they're just not used to this idea. And that's a huge, huge, huge struggle.
Yeah.
So,
Fully agree with that. And I think that was a lot of it too. There's, like, we're talking about my mom. My mom was the one having the conversation with me, or the conversations with me. As much as some of them were painful, some of them were very hurtful. It was still communication. So looking at it from a positive perspective, there was no, that's it, you're done, you're dead to me. There wasn't that. Although sometimes a little bit it felt like it. Not necessarily with her, but I would get my grandmother calling me. I had still 4 grandparents at this time when I came out. I had my grandmother calling me saying, "Take the knife out of your father's heart. You stab him in the back." And, going on and on. And I was just like, oh my God, like, you're my grandmother. Aren't you just supposed to love me? But then my other grandmother, who was much older, really didn't care. Like,
Mel,
like,
you want to know
weird.
Yeah.
Like, my one grandmother, who was more worldly, we'll say, who has gone out and done, and then my other grandmother, who wasn't that type of that lifestyle, like that socialite lifestyle.
But it's the social part, I think, of, like, what are people going to think? What's the like, that part of it was harder on one versus the other. Yeah.
So my other grandmother was, like, super supportive, and my grandfather was the one that actually got my dad and I and CeeLo in the same room around the holidays. Like, this took a couple of years after I had come out. CeeLo didn't come to the house, didn't come to family events, but then I had to put my foot down, and that's where I was going, where, it was sort of an ultimatum, but it wasn't. It was you need to progress your life. You can't keep living like this. where I was like, she's a part of my life. She is my life. Like, I go,
Yeah.
she comes, like she's with me. And then it slowly, we had a few little things that happened. Like my mom, my aunt, and my grandma came over to the house after the renovations. And then CeeLo left to make it less
Awkward.
awkward
And
for them.
yeah, because I wanted them to come and see and be proud of you. And
Yeah. And then
Mhm.
CeeLo came back into the house, but it was different. CeeLo was entering the house when they were already there. It's kind of like that alpha dog,
Yeah.
sort of
which
concept.
Yeah.
I am.
Yeah.
I am the fucking alpha dog right here. Look,
But that was very smart of you, CeeLo, to try to not push the agenda so strongly.
just hold on. The alpha dog is barking.
So it was actually very smart of you, CeeLo, to actually handle it that way instead of just pushing the agenda and saying, "Listen, it's my way or no way, and it's you guys are going to have to get used to it, and we're here, and this is our house." You were aware enough that they needed a different approach, and that different approach needed a little bit more patience. So I think kind of what you were doing, which
Yeah.
is, I'm going to be here, you're going to see me, you're going to get used to me, and then I'm going to leave, and then I'm going to come back, and you're going to get used to me, and slowly this is going to become normal for you,
Yeah,
like,
it's kind of funny because I got to know them all before you had come out, and I was just your friend tagging along for something. So I
Yeah.
got to know them a little bit, right?
And they got to know
Mhm.
you.
Yeah.
And
And even when
Yeah.
your mom was really upset after you first came out, was like, one of the things she said right off the bat was, "Don't get me wrong, I think CeeLo's awesome, but
Yeah.
it was all the other things wrapped up in it. It
Yeah.
wasn't about
And there-
me as a person."
and there was no blame against you, which I thought was really good because it's easy to find blame in other people that they did this to me.
Mhm.
And there was none of that came out of my family, which I thought was pretty awesome.
Oh, like a reverse conversion therapy?
Yeah.
I converted you?
Yeah. So then, so that was interesting. And I hadn't really, spoken to my dad until the Christmas, which was like a couple years later. Like I had seen him, I had gone for Easter because Easter's a big thing for us. And
So was he kind of keeping his distance from you since this kind of
I
broke?
think it was also me. I can't say it was all him. I think he was trying to figure it out. Like he's a pretty macho man. So he was trying to figure things out for himself and wrap his head around it. And I'm sure people, if he had confided in a few, had opinions on how to handle the situation. I know I had family in the US that had suggestions to just ban me and get rid of me.
Oh gosh,
Oh
really?
yeah, I don't talk to those people. They're dead to me.
And neither do your parents.
Neither do my parents, because my parents were like, "This is my daughter, and that's not what we're doing." So kudos to them. Like again, as much as my coming out story was challenging and difficult, when I look at all of the external influence outside of my family of four, and what could have happened and how people could have poisoned them, they didn't. So I look at that and I take pride in that because our family unit was strong enough to overcome any external influence. But
I think too, right? As you've grown and heard other people's kind of coming out stories and some of the horrible things that have happened to people and kids, it's shocking. It's shocking to me.
Yeah.
And so in that sense, I mean, bumps along the way, but we were both lucky.
Yeah. And then, the Christmas hits and my dad has not seen CeeLo since I've come out, right? Because CeeLo hasn't been around. My mom has, my aunt has, my cousins, like everyone else has, but he was the big milestone. Like he was the star on your plan that you needed to get through that milestone, And so we're at my grandparents, my older grandparents, on my dad's side, and got up. My brother called me and he's like, "We're on our way," and I'm like, "Okay, we're leaving," because we had a formal sit down dinner at my mom's side of the family for Christmas dinner, and I figure more people there. Let's just have the interaction there. And my grandfather, with the little English he could speak, grabbed my hand and grabbed CeeLo's hand and said, "My house, you stay." And just squeezed our hands because he didn't care. So then when my parents entered, it was very awkward. I think
Oh my
I think
God.
my beats per minute must have been at least 300 because I
Right.
felt like I was going to have a heart attack. I felt like I was moving the earth with the way my heart was racing.
Mhm.
You know, and CeeLo went up to my dad, Merry Christmas. He's like, Merry Christmas. And, you know, the European kiss,
That's
kiss
fun.
on the cheek. And that was kind of it. Like that initial interaction, all of that anxiety, all of that stress, and all because of my grandfather refusing to have either of us feel like we were
We had to
lesser,
leave.
unwanted, and we had to leave. So, you know, he passed away not long after that. But
Yeah. Isn't it I find it really amazing and shocking sometimes how, the people that you would expect to be most accepting sometimes are the ones that are not, and then the ones that you don't expect are like, just full of love and accept it. I remember talking about CeeLo's spiky, what did you call it? Spiky
her
dyke
dyke
hair?
spike,
What did
her
Dyke
you
dyke
spike.
spike.
the dyke spike? Um, that was yeah.
So awesome.
Remember when we were talking with CeeLo's story and it was kind of like, she cut her hair and she was just going all like, you guys are going to accept me the way that I am and blah, blah, blah. And that was part of that whole haircut thing there. But it's funny because when CeeLo and I moved in together, she had that short haircut.
Yeah.
Okay. And so we had been friends throughout high school and now we're moving out for the first time. Um, I had told my family that CeeLo was gay. I had told them because she had come out at this point, and I'm not even thinking anything about, well, that's who she is, right? Like I didn't even think that I needed to not tell my parents. My mom was the one who had a little bit more of an issue
Mm,
with me moving out with CeeLo.
mhm.
And my mom, would not it was she had, and yet she was the one who was a little bit more modern. She was the one who had moved out from a small town in Sudbury all the way to Toronto,
Yeah.
and which was unheard of coming from an Italian family, you know what I mean? And so she was a little bit more modernized. I would have expected her to be a little bit more kind of, supportive of it. I think her fear was, what are people going to think, right?
100% that's what it
And
comes
yeah,
to. Yeah.
yeah. But then the funny thing about this, Mel, is I remember my father driving me to the GO station one morning. This was before I moved in with CeeLo. Okay. And he says to me, he says, I love you no matter what. And I said, okay, thanks. You know what I mean? Like, I'm like, thanks. And he's like, no, if there's something that you want to tell me, you can tell me. And I said, Dad, what are you talking about? I have nothing to tell you. He goes, no, really, it's okay. If you want to tell me something, you can tell me and I will love you no matter what. And I said to him, you are confusing the shit out of me. What the fuck are you talking about? He says, well, you're moving in with a gay woman. Is there something you want to say? I'm like, oh my God, Dad, you think I'm gay? And he's like, well, yeah, everybody thinks you're gay. The entire family, my entire family thought I was gay because I was moving in with CeeLo. And I had no fucking idea. I wasn't even gay and I was outed. So it's
That's
like,
hilarious.
but it's funny that love and support coming from my dad was not what I expected because he was very old fashioned Italian. He was the one who, you know, was like, you don't leave until you're married. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
that kind of thing. So it was surprising. Same as you, right, Mel? Same
Yeah.
as you.
Oh, totally. And it was like,
Yeah.
we got through that and my brother was okay eventually like
Hmm.
my brother's also gay and but he wasn't really out, but everyone knew. Like, you know?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. So when I came
Was that
out,
a shock for your parents though, Mel?
hey, they're
Knowing
back
that, like, having 2 children or you coming out before him and them thinking that he was gay, but you
Yeah,
weren't?
yeah. That I think that added to the impact of the
Mhm.
like the response to my true self. I think that
Mhm.
that was there. My brother had a little bit. He had an issue, and he was a little bit angry with me. But I think also
Why?
Well, why was he angry? You have to say why.
I did because he wasn't out.
Not that he
But
wasn't out, it's just that he
Like I
had
beat
he
him
had
to it.
spent he had
Yeah.
spent his
Mm.
whole life also in the
Hiding
closet
it.
and he knew way
Oh
earlier.
yeah, he knew from
And
little.
so
Yeah.
he was kind of in that closet space for so long
Yeah.
working up the courage, and then you came out, and he's like, "What the fuck, man? I've been waiting
Yeah.
to do that."
He's
That's
like, you've
why
been gay
he
for
was
5 minutes and everyone knows. And it was like, it was one of those. But again, you know, like it, you know, talk it through. He's my brother. Like, I love him with all my heart. And, you know, I would assume the same. He loves me the same way. But it was like, you know, we kind of bonded over that, and it almost enhanced our relationship.
Yeah.
You know, a little bit.
You're
and then
in it together.
in it
almost,
together, yeah. And you know, he helped, and he would help navigate my mom when my mom would be upset, or navigate my dad and stuff. But you know, time goes on, all goes well. We go to Mexico on vacation.
Mexico.
We go scuba diving. First time ever. I lose my shit because my regulator was filled with sand and they're trying to make me jump in the ocean. And we get back to our room, and CeeLo, you know, says, come sit on the hammock. I'm like, I'm not sitting on the fucking hammock. I was like, my ass is going to flip on that thing. I'm not doing it. She's like, just come, just sit with me. Let's like watch the sunset. I'm like, no, I want to shower. I want to wash myself, and I want to take a nap before dinner. So I did not make this easy because I had no idea what was happening. You know, CeeLo pops the question, will you marry me? And I was like, in my head, I said yes, but nothing came out of my mouth. I'm like, yes, I do. Can I with my family? I'm not sure. And I don't know. I think it felt like just like split seconds to me, but I'm pretty sure it felt like minutes to CeeLo.
Hours.
So I was like, yes, you know, the whole bit. And then that was it. Like, we got engaged while we were on vacation in Mexico after our scuba dive. And now I had to tell my family. I'm like, oh shit. Here we go again.
If you haven't broken them yet, you sure as shit
was
gonna break them now.
Yeah, that's exactly what I was thinking. I'm like, man, they just got okay with me being queer, and I'm like, now I got to tell them I'm marrying a woman, and oh my god, how am I gonna do this? Well, I tell my mom, it's not okay.
She says it's not okay.
It was not okay. No, it was not. Why do you need to do this? What's the difference? You know, why does it matter? I'm like, it matters to me, and that should be enough, you know, kind of thing. You know, a little bit fast forward. I have to now tell my dad. She's like, I'm not telling your father. I told him you were gay. You're telling him you're getting married. I'm like, okay. Oh, this was like a big deep breath in. I'm like, all right. But now immediate family all knows I'm gay, right? So, and they all know CeeLo, and it's all good. And, you know, it's fine. But now we're making it official. And I was like, maybe it's not going to be so fine after this. So I'm like, I conspire this plan to take my dad to go see this car, because he's a car guy. He likes engines, the whole bit. So I was like, I'll take him with me, and I'll tell him, like, after we go look at this car, we're thinking of buying this car. What do you think? Like, take a look at the engine and doing all this stuff. So we get in the car, and he's like, I'm driving. I'm like, Daddy, I got something to tell you. Yeah, I already know. I'm like, huh?
Oh.
His sister told him.
Oh, geez.
She broke my news. So he's like, last guy to know anything. And I was like, it wasn't intentional, Dad. Like, I was going to tell you. He's like, listen, and this is going to make me cry again, because this is like probably the sweetest thing that my father has ever said to me. Like, I get that I love you, you know, regularly, but this was, listen, you're my daughter. He goes, I only have one daughter. He goes, I'm your father, but you're going to have your own life. He goes, if I disown you, I lose. He goes, I don't understand this. I don't know if I'll ever understand it, but I know that you're my daughter and I love you. And then that was it.
And now he's got 2 daughters.
Which I think he likes you better.
I think I might have said that on an earlier episode, but yeah.
So he was kind of like okay with it. And
that's good.
Yeah, it was really impressive. Now, you know, I'm kind of like skimming over the pain and suffering, because there's some stuff I don't want to share in a public forum, but
Sure.
it was hard. But just I guess the whole moral of the story is like the love we have for one another and the respect we have for one another as a family kind of got us through to the other side of this. So, you know, and then here's wifey, I want to have a baby. I'm like, I'm not having a fucking baby. Nope. I got married. We're good. No, I want a baby. No, I don't think. No,
I can't go through this again with
I'm
my
like,
family.
I'm gonna break. I don't think emotionally I can handle this. So, and I was like, and it was a deal breaker. Like we literally
Yeah.
just got married, and this one's talking like she'll divorce my ass if I don't
Yeah.
saying yes to kids.
CeeLo
No,
was
you
serious.
had
Like
said-
she was.
You were
Yeah.
on board with the kids before we got married. That took a
Yeah.
lot
That was
for you on board,
That was
but that was like
conversation.
something going to happen in the future.
Then
and
you hold me to
yeah,
it.
exactly.
So then it was like, oh my God. So I actually went and saw a psychologist to help me understand my feelings and my reluctance and try to better understand myself and where this fear and resistance was coming from. You know, thousands of dollars later, I could have told myself that 20 years down the road. But the, you know, it was how everyone was going to take it. It wasn't me. It wasn't any, you know,
Yeah.
second guessing myself about being
You were worried about everyone else.
everyone else.
And they're, yeah.
Like that whole, the way I was raised, the way it was, don't
Yeah.
act this way in public, don't do this, don't do that, don't
Yeah.
wear that. Like it was all
Yeah.
of that crashing
Mhm.
down on me, but took the steps. CeeLo got knocked up.
You say it like we didn't go to the fertility clinic or something. Like I just went to the bar. Like,
Would have been a whole
hey.
lot cheaper.
No shit.
But the
It would have been cheaper. Oh my God. You would not have enjoyed it though. That's for sure.
no, definitely not. The so we, you know, saw a fertility doctor, went through the whole process, and you know, a couple of attempts, and finally, third time's a charm. CeeLo's pregnant.
Mm-hmm.
I am not telling my family. I am scared shitless to tell them about this. So time goes on.
I'm just gonna show up at like some holiday event and be like, and they'd be like, "Oh, looks like maybe you had too much spanakopita." Huh?
So 3 months, we knew things were good, like 12-week mark, right?
Mhm.
Things were good. I'm like, oh my God, I gotta do this. I gotta do this. And I'm like, okay, well, they came along. They came this far. What's one more piece of news? Well, that piece of news almost broke everything.
Really?
I was told I was selfish, wanting to bring a child into my lifestyle, not thinking about what it means to them. There were some terrible things that were said. I had to tell my dad. My dad was like, "What for?" You know, that's
Having children is beautiful.
yeah. Well, you know, and then so you know, this is the whole now pain and suffering, and then there's a few things that were said, and it was really hurtful. Kind of hurtful, really hurtful, not kind of.
Mm-hmm.
And then you know, CeeLo goes into labor, and you know, being the Greek that I am, I had probably, I don't know what, like 6 bags of food for the nursing staff and the doctors.
It was around the holidays.
It was
too, so we
around.
had,
It was like
all
New
that
Year's
food.
Eve, right? And I'm like, "Can I shower?" CeeLo's like, "Yeah, you can shower." I'm like, "Are you sure you're okay? Like, what's the timing of your contractions?" Anyway, shower, go there, 5,000 bags, baby seat, I don't know what else, suitcase, like you name it. I was like, it was like an episode out of a TV show. Like
Yeah.
I was like that idiot dad with all the shit, trying to get my wife into emergency, like at the, you know, because she's in labor, the whole bit. Anyways, it was pretty hilarious. But when our daughter was born, everyone came to the hospital. And as soon as that mother of mine held this sweet, precious gem of our daughter, was like, "When are you having the next one?" I'm like,
oh gosh,
the tears in the vag have not healed yet, and you're asking for the next grandkid, you know, like. Yeah. And it was that moment. It was actually, there was a bigger moment that happened before there, where I got T-boned by a car and almost died. I had broken ribs, broken collarbone, broken shoulder blade.
Yeah.
And
I think you had just told them that I was pregnant, and now you're like in the hospital, and I've got to call your mom and say like, Mel was in an accident and you should probably come here. And maybe that was a tipping thing.
I think that was a tipping point of the change, because when I was released from the hospital, I was like 3 times my size. My whole body was swollen, just protecting itself, right? And then my parents came through the door, and my father looked like he saw a ghost. He was pale white when he looked at me.
Yeah.
I was like busted up and bruised and
Yeah.
the whole bit. Mom was crying, the whole thing. And I think that moment, it was almost like I felt like it was fate. It was meant to happen. It was meant to happen, and it was orchestrated from a power above, maybe my grandfather who had passed at this point. Like, things could be worse. This is not bad.
Mhm.
Enjoy
This
this.
is not bad,
This is life.
Mhm.
This is
Wow.
not death.
And now to see your mom and is like,
Oh,
they've
yeah.
got the specialist little
Oh my
relationship.
gosh.
Well, I can say, like, your parents both, Mel, your parents are like
Pepper for
crazy
the
for your
kids.
kids, both your son and your daughter. And you guys have such a well-established family, like unit, like both you and CeeLo and your kids. It's enviable from, by others for
Yeah.
sure. And I can see the respect that your mom has for you now. Even when I was at that game,
Yeah.
watching Nathaniel, I was chatting with your mom. She was sitting behind me as well. And, there's a lot of pride. She has a lot of pride. And so does your dad. Your dad was there too, for your children. So it's amazing how that's all turned out, how it started with such negativity and such,
Yeah.
vitriol for what was
Yeah.
you guys were doing, to now being like, where would this whole extended family be without these kids? Right.
Yeah. And it's funny because the kids are little. I'll never forget. We were Sunday on the way home from the lake. We would stop at my parents' house and have dinner there because the kids were little. Like, was what?
Do
Like
a bath, put in jammies.
3, and the boy was 1,
year.
Something like that. And, it says, Papu, come. And she grabs his index finger with her whole fist,
Mhm.
and he's like, okay,
Mhm.
Papu, where are we going? Where are we going? She's like, come, garden. And they walk out to the garden, and he's picking flowers for her. And I'm like, who would have thought this was going down, So when I told
Yeah.
them we were having a second child, it was easier. My dad's like, what for? And I'm like, well, Pop, this one's going to be my egg. And I got to explain now science to my immigrant dad of how this is all going to work. But, he was open to listening. And then the fact that it was a boy, was another like win. The fact that it was like a
Yeah.
image of me
Yeah.
was like, okay, kind of thing. But,
Mhm.
there has never been a moment that any of my family has ever
Mhm.
slighted our kids
Mhm.
in any
No,
way,
that's
right?
true.
Like, it has been,
Mhm.
it was a battle. It was an uphill climb, but where we are now, we have like the best view of life. And I think that's kind of
Oh, well
you like
said.
that?
Did
You
you
like
plan
that?
that?
No, I didn't. That just came to
Oh
mind.
my God,
It might be the
that's good.
alcohol. Yeah.
That's good.
Yeah.
No, that's good.
You know?
Yeah, it's true. I think like the struggles that you go through at the time feel horrible and like you're not going to get out of
Mhm.
it, but also end up making you into the person that you are.
Yeah.
And
It's true. It changes you. It changes you for who you're meant to be, and it puts you on the path that you're meant to be on. Um, feels like shit when you're going through it for sure, like you said, CeeLo, but
Mhm.
it's what we all need to do. Like, as humans, we need to do this. We need to go through these trials so that we can come out the other side,
Yeah.
knowing who we are. So,
And
no, that's great.
yeah,
Mhm.
I was going to say, and feeling better about ourselves, feeling more
Mhm.
confident, feeling
Yeah.
more, you know, fit to go out and conquer almost,
Mhm.
right? When you go through a couple of battles, then you realize, oh, okay, I can stand up a little straighter. I'm ready, I'm
Mhm.
prepared for whatever might come at me next.
I
Mhm.
have one story to share. Do I have another minute?
Yeah, I wanna ask you about work, but go
Yeah,
ahead.
well,
Go
that's
ahead.
where I was
Share your
going.
story.
So I
Okay, tell me.
had this one boss,
Mhm.
Irish boss, Irish Catholic, and I used to hide and say, like, there was a woman I was dating, and I, transposed her name to a male name just to talk about her in the office.
How was your
right?
weekend or
Oh,
whatever?
I spent time with Nick and blah blah blah, right?
Mhm.
So I think this was when I think gay marriage was at starting to come into conversation because
Mhm.
civil unions were recognized in certain provinces, and then it was the fight,
Mhm.
to have it recognized at a federal level, the whole bit. And he made a comment, and I'll never forget this. He goes, "So if I'm in love with my dog, does that mean I can marry my dog?" I was like, "Whoa,
Fucking
man,
idiot.
like how?" how do
What a
you
fucking idiot.
like
Right.
bring animals into human being conversation? But this is like some of the ignorance that's out there.
And this was your
This
boss.
was my direct boss,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
I'm like,
Yeah.
fuck, I'm never coming out to this guy. Like,
Yeah.
he's gonna know nothing about me. But that
Mhm.
moment was so pivotal for me, where I was not going to hide or play down who I was. Like, that was a moment
For you.
in, like, once I come out and confident,
Mhm.
that level of confidence came with being who I am and saying it out
Yeah.
loud
Exactly.
several times. It's still fearful to say it out loud because I don't know what someone's reaction is going to be. I like to be liked. I think everybody likes to be liked. No one wants to be looked at
Sure.
like they're some degenerate or, you know,
Mhm.
or frowned upon for their lifestyle and who they are. So I was just like, people ask me questions and they'll be like, they see the kids and the kids are spitting images of each of us, right? And they'll
Yes,
see
they
the
are.
kids and they're like, you know, Mel, can I ask you a question? I'm like, whatever you want to know. I'm like, let's talk, you know? And I teach them. Like, and I don't say
Yes.
it like I'm talking down to them where I'm teaching them, but
No.
my open conversation and my open-mindedness,
Willingness.
willingness,
Yeah.
you know, to explain something that someone may never have to go through. Like, someone who's struggling to have kids in a heterosexual relationship will understand the trials and tribulations of fertility clinics and all of
Mhm.
that, right? But someone who doesn't know anything about that, I like to be able to tell our story, and I'm proud of our story. Like, I am
Yeah.
so proud of our story, where I like drop pictures in team chats where I'm like, look at my son this weekend, lacrosse tournament, you know, or here's my daughter, she got her national lifeguard certification, you know, like,
Yeah.
but I'm proud of my family, and I don't think
Yes.
I will ever, that will never stop. And yeah, so, you know,
Well, I think the more stories that get told, the easier it gets for you, and the better it gets for those coming up behind us for the
Yeah.
next gen.
yeah.
Yeah. Agreed. And that's why we do this, right? That's why we talk about a lot of things that we talk about. Normalizing things so that way acceptance can start.
Mhm.
And, you know, I'm going to repeat what Laura, our previous guest, had said about leading with empathy and curiosity.
Yeah.
And it goes both ways. You know, like, you were leading with empathy and curiosity when somebody was asking you questions, Mel, you know, and hopefully they approach, you know, others with the same empathy and curiosity as well. That is the only way that things will change in this world,
It's
Yeah.
true.
you know?
Yeah, 100%. And you know what? For the listeners that are out there, or dinner guests that are out there,
Thank you.
I'm sorry, I'm getting used to this. It's something else you can pick on me for when you're opening up your
We love you, Mel. Come on.
you know, if there's any advice I can give, is just, your life is not full until you can be truly honest with who you are to yourself first, and then those around you. So whether it's, you know, you're coming out, whether it's not happy in a marriage, you know, being able to stand up for yourself and give yourself the same respect and dignity that you're giving others to have a happy life. Like, don't hold back.
Don't hold back.
Don't hold back.
Life's
Just
too
be
short.
you. Yeah.
Life's too
Yeah.
short.
And for those, and there's some people that'll never understand it, and that's cool,
Yeah.
you know, but don't judge me for it. If you don't
Yeah.
understand it, I'll respect your comments. I'll respect your, you know, not understanding it and not getting it. And I'm okay with that. We shake hands and we agree to disagree and move on. But, you know,
And fuck you.
yeah.
No,
well,
I'm
maybe
kidding.
A
Yeah,
little
a
bit.
little bit fuck you. Come on.
You're rowdy.
I have a lot of patience. I am like queen of patience.
You do.
But I get to a
You-
certain point, and if
You
it's
do.
someone who's
That's right.
just an idiot, then it's a little bit
Yeah.
fuck you.
It's hard.
Yeah.
I tend
Yeah.
to be a little bit better, oddly, in that situation.
I'm moving on. Like, I'm done.
Yeah,
I'm
yeah.
done with you. I'm moving
She's
on.
done.
Whereas Mel will like try and
I'm like, no, let's
Convince and talk and educate it. Yeah, no,
But it's
I
like,
know.
educate. It's talk a
Mhm.
little bit more. Tell me
Yep.
why you don't
Yep.
get it. Tell me where
Yeah.
it is doesn't make sense to you, you know, kind of thing. Just, I like
Yeah.
to take the time, because if I can change people's opinions, you know, little
Yeah.
by little,
Yeah.
then yeah.
Agreed.
But, you know, I've done something
Well-
properly in life.
You have. Well, actually, Mel, you have done a lot of proper things or good things in life. I mean, you have an amazing family who I love very much.
We love you.
And I'm glad to be part of that family. You know what I mean? And you guys have both done really, really, really well. And you're some of, like, honestly, the most awesome parents. You really both are.
Aw, thanks, Bo.
So Well, you're
Yeah, we're pretty
welcome.
good, eh?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah,
We're
We're
so
all right.
good.
We're all right. We're high
But Mel, listen,
five.
here's the thing. We need more stories. So you're going to have to
No.
She took my
keep up
credit
with
card.
your.
No.
Yeah.
No. Did she take your credit card?
Are you kidding me? You think I'd stand for that? I'd go get another one and spend 3 times as much. That's the macho in me
Okay.
coming out.
I'm going to be seeing you at your cottage this coming weekend. So I'm going to bring my laptop and I'm going to just accidentally put up an auction that I'm watching, and we'll see what happens.
I'm going to get her to show you the auction page, and then you too will be addicted.
Yeah, probably. I probably would
into
be.
the same bullshit that I'm stuck.
Listen, Dave's going to be pissed off. I don't know if I start buying shit, so we'll see. It's okay. CeeLo and him can freaking battle it out. Mel, thank you so much for coming onto our podcast. We really appreciate you sharing your story and being so honest and open.
I thank you
And
for having me. It was,
no,
you know, hopefully my
It's good
story
times.
helps anyone
Yeah.
and something they're struggling with, and realizing you can come out in the light on the other
Yeah.
end. So,
absolutely. Thank you, Mel.
Thanks, wifey.
oh, my pleasure, ladies. All right.
Thanks for taking a seat at the table today. We love our dinner guests.
Don't forget to subscribe and follow The Dinner Agenda on the podcast platform you use so that you don't miss any new episodes. You can also follow us on Instagram and Facebook at The Dinner Agenda.
We look forward to hearing your comments, questions, and even ideas you may have on future episodes.
Thanks for taking this journey with us.